The market on Zephyra was alive with noise, colors, and smells. Merchants shouted over one another, selling strange fruits, glowing crystals, and machines that moved on their own. Aliens of every shape and size crowded the streets. But among them, a figure stood out, an untamed wild girl moving through the chaos as if the world itself feared her. Her name was Lyra, and she was not like anyone else on Zephyra. Her skin shimmered with a faint silver glow under the sun, her hair wild and untamed like the forests of her home world. Her eyes, bright green with flecks of gold, seemed to see far beyond the present. Wherever she went, the crowd moved away instinctively. No one wanted to be near her. Lyra had always been different. Born on a distant, harsh planet, she learned to survive among predators and storms. Her body was strong, her senses sharp, and her mind quick. Yet, all her abilities, instead of earning respect, earned fear. On Zephyra, survival meant blending in, following rules. But Lyra followed none. She lived by instinct, and for that she was alone. Today she had come to the market looking for food. Small scavengers had stolen her supplies, and hunger gnawed at her belly. She crouched behind a pile of crates, observing the humans and aliens, trading without worry. Most of them ignored her, and some looked at her with disgust. A young alien boy dared to approach, but the moment he saw her teeth flash in a small snarl, he ran screaming. Lyra sighed. She hated this. All she wanted was to survive in peace, but peace never came to her. Survival was a battle, and the world seemed determined to make it harder. Suddenly, a group of rough-looking aliens approached. They were large, with armored skin and sharp claws. They sneered at Lyra, calling her names in harsh, guttural tones. She could feel their hostility in the air. Her heart raced, but her body stayed calm. She had faced worse on her home planet. "You're alone, wild girl," one of them growled. "No one cares about you. Give us your food and we might leave you alive." Lyra's hands curled into fists. Hunger made her stronger, sharper, faster. She could run, dodge, fight, but she also knew the odds. These were not ordinary scavengers. They were experienced hunters. Yet she did not tremble. "I don't need your food," she said softly, her voice steady. But the group did not back away. They moved closer, claws raised. Her instincts took over. In a blur, she darted to the side, using the market stalls as cover. She grabbed a metal rod lying nearby and swung it with surprising strength. One of the aliens stumbled and another hissed in anger. Lyra's speed and agility confused them. She moved like water, striking, dodging, disappearing, and reappearing with no warning. The crowd around them began to scatter, shouting warnings, but no one came to help. On Zephyra, a wild alien girl was trouble, not someone to protect. Lyra knew this. She had faced rejection all her life, and yet something inside her did not want to give up. Finally, after a few tense minutes, the attackers realized they could not catch her easily. Growling, they backed away, leaving her panting in the middle of the market. Lyra's body ached and her hands were scratched, but she was alive. Alone again, she glanced at the fleeing crowd. No one clapped, no one cheered, no one even looked impressed. She was used to it, but the emptiness still stung. Being strong meant nothing if no one acknowledged it. Lyra decided to move on. She needed shelter and food, and the market had given her neither. She leapt across rooftops, landing silently on a narrow ledge. Her green eyes scanned the streets below, looking for a place to hide. She spotted an abandoned warehouse nearby. Its doors were old and rusty, but it would keep her safe for the night. As she approached, something unusual caught her eye. A figure stood near the entrance watching her. Unlike the aliens around, this one did not look afraid, nor hostile. He was human, with pale skin and dark hair, wearing a uniform that suggested he belonged to some organization or fleet. He did not move when she froze, nor did he speak. He just watched, calm and steady. Lyra tilted her head. Humans were rare on Zephyra, and most avoided wild creatures like her. But this one, he did not. His eyes did not judge her. He did not sneer or pull back. He just looked, as if he was trying to understand her. Something inside her stirred, a mixture of curiosity and caution. She wanted to flee, but she also wanted to see what this human would do. She stepped forward slowly, hands raised in case he was a threat. The human smiled faintly. "You're strong," he said simply. "I like that." Lyra's eyebrows rose. It was the first time anyone had complimented her for her strength instead of fearing it. I survive," she said cautiously. "Good," he replied. "Survivors are rare. They're valuable. You shouldn't hide your abilities." Lyra blinked. The words sounded strange, but they felt right. No one had ever said anything like that. She was used to rejection, insults, and fear, but not this. Not someone seeing her for what she truly was. Before she could respond, the warehouse doors creaked behind her. Shadows moved, and she realized the predators from earlier were still around, lurking in the distance, waiting for another chance. The human took a step forward, placing himself between her and the threat. "Don't worry," he said calmly. "I won't let them touch you." Lyra froze. No one had ever defended her before. Defense meant survival, not friendship. She had never imagined someone would protect her without expecting anything in return. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Hope. She nodded slightly, accepting his protection, though she did not yet trust it fully. But a part of her knew one thing for sure. This human was different. He did not hesitate. He did not run. He did not fear her. And in a world where no one wanted the wild alien girl, that simple courage mattered more than anything. Lyra's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the predators retreat into the shadows. The human stood calmly in front of her, hands relaxed at his sides, showing no fear. Lyra had learned long ago that fear was survival, yet here was a creature who seemed fearless, who did not flinch at her sharp claws or wild appearance. "Who are you?" Lyra asked cautiously, keeping her distance. Her green eyes narrowed, watching him for any sign of betrayal. "I'm Captain Joran," the human replied. His voice was calm but firm, carrying a quiet authority. "I'm just passing through, but I couldn't leave you alone out here." Lyra tilted her head. Humans rarely helped others unless there was a clear benefit. She had been hunted, ignored, and rejected by everyone for as long as she could remember. "Why would you help me? Everyone else runs away," she said, suspicion in her voice. Joran smiled faintly. "Because not everyone sees the world the same way. Some people, some humans, see value where others see danger." Lyra blinked. She had never heard words like that. Value. Not danger. Not weakness. She did not understand fully, but the thought made her chest tighten in a strange way. The human stepped aside, motioning toward a small alley behind the warehouse. "Come with me. You need food, shelter, and safety." Lyra hesitated. She had never trusted anyone willingly. She had always survived on her own. But the predators were still out there, and her supplies were gone. She could either fight alone or accept his help. Her stomach growled, reminding her that survival sometimes meant taking risks. Slowly, she followed him. Her movements were cautious, almost feline, as she leapt over crates and followed the human down narrow alleys. Joran did not rush her, keeping a steady pace, never touching her, never crowding her. His calm presence made her uneasy, yet something about it felt safe. They reached a small human ship docked at the edge of the market. Its surface gleamed under the twin suns, and strange symbols lined its hull. Joran led her inside, and Lyra gasped. She had never seen technology like this. Lights hovered in midair, machines moved on their own, and a soft hum filled the air. "This is your safe place," Joran said. "You can rest here until you're ready to move again." Lyra looked around, unsure. She had lived in caves, forests, and ruined cities. Safety was not a concept she understood fully, but the warmth of the ship, the clean smell, and the lack of immediate danger made her relax slightly. I don't need help, she muttered, though her voice lacked conviction. You do, Joran said simply. No one can survive alone, forever. Even the strongest need allies. Lyra's mind raced. Allies. She had never had allies. Every friend she ever had turned away, and every companion had been lost. Could she trust this human? Her instincts screamed caution, but another part of her, a part she rarely acknowledged, longed for something more than survival. The human handed her a small tray of food. The smell was strange, but enticing. Her stomach growled again, louder, this time. She took a cautious bite, tasting flavors she had never known. Hunger made her bold, and soon she was eating freely, feeling the strength return to her body. Joran watched silently, a faint smile on his face. He did not speak while she ate. He understood patience. That was another quality humans possessed that other species often lacked, the ability to wait, to let trust grow naturally. After she finished, Lyra sat back, leaning against the wall. Why do you care about me? She asked softly. Joran's gaze met hers. Because I see someone who can survive anything, someone who is strong, clever, and brave. Most people would fear you. I see potential. I see a partner. Lyra's eyes widened. Partner. That was a new word, a new idea. No one had ever called her that. Strength alone had not won her friends. It had only earned fear. Could someone actually want her? Not for what she... Life aboard Joran's ship was unlike anything Lyra had ever known. The walls glowed softly with light, and strange machines hummed as they moved on their own. Buttons, screens, and levers covered every surface, and alien symbols flashed in colors she could barely name. She had never seen such technology, and at first it made her uneasy. Lyra moved cautiously, keeping her distance from everything and everyone. She had survived on instincts, speed, and strength for as long as she could remember. Now she was in a place where survival seemed different. Here, quick reflexes mattered, but so did patience, observation, and teamwork. Joran noticed her hesitation. Don't worry, he said gently. I'll show you everything. You don't have to understand it all at once. Lyra's green eyes narrowed. She did not trust easily. Why are you being so kind? Why not just leave me to survive on my own? Joran paused, studying her. Because I know the difference between fear and strength. You're strong, Lyra. But even the strongest need help sometimes, even you. Lyra blinked. The words were strange, but they made her pause. On her world, survival had always been a lonely fight. No one had ever offered help without wanting something in return. She had learned to distrust kindness, yet she could see that Joran meant what he said. Over the next few days, Joran taught her about the ship. He showed her how the engines worked, how to communicate with the ship's automated systems, and how to move safely through corridors without triggering alarms. Lyra was clumsy at first, tripping over wires and misreading controls. She wanted to snap at him, to run away. But Joran never lost patience. He corrected her gently, repeating instructions until she understood. You humans are very patient, Lyra muttered one day, wiping sweat from her brow after a particularly tricky training session. Joran smiled. It's part of what makes us strong. Patience helps us think, adapt, and survive in ways brute strength alone cannot. Lyra considered his words. Strength had kept her alive on her world, but it had also isolated her. Patience, she realized, was a kind of power she had never used before. She wanted to learn it, even if it felt strange. One evening, as the ship floated above a quiet star system, an emergency alarm rang. Lyra's instincts kicked in immediately. She crouched low, ready to fight or flee. Joran's voice rang out over the speakers. Lyra, stay calm. Follow my instructions. Her heart raced, but she listened. Joran directed her to a control panel. We need to reroute the energy to the shields. You can do it. I'll guide you. Lyra's fingers shook as she touched the panel. She had never operated technology like this before, but Joran's calm, steady voice guided her through each step. Slowly, carefully, she followed his instructions. A sudden tremor shook the ship. A meteor storm had appeared unexpectedly, striking the shields. Lyra's hands moved faster now, guided by instinct and Joran's voice. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but she did not falter. In minutes, the shields were rerouted, the danger avoided. Lyra stepped back, breathing heavily. She had done it. The ship was safe. And she realized something important. She had not done it alone. She had listened, learned, and trusted. And that trust had saved everyone on the ship. Joran placed a hand on her shoulder. See? Strength is not just about fighting. It's also about listening, learning, and working with others. You have that power too, Lyra. You just needed to see it. Lyra looked at him, eyes wide. Humans were strange creatures. They were soft, yet capable of great courage. They thought differently, acted differently, yet somehow they could do things she had never imagined. They could survive and thrive, not just with brute force but with patience, trust, and cooperation. Over the next few days, Lyra began to notice small changes in herself. She moved more carefully through the ship, listening to warnings, observing patterns, and thinking before acting. She practiced with Joran, learning to operate controls, manage supplies, and anticipate dangers. Slowly, she began to understand that human strength was not always obvious. It was quiet, subtle, and just as effective as her own raw power. One morning, as they prepared for departure from a peaceful planet, Lyra watched Joran interact with the crew. He did not command with anger or fear. He guided, corrected, and encouraged. The crew trusted him, and he trusted them in return. Lyra felt a pang of envy and admiration. She had never experienced such mutual respect before. Lyra, Joran said suddenly, noticing her staring, "You're improving fast. You're learning what it means to trust others, and that makes you stronger than ever." Lyra's lips pressed together. She did not know if she was ready to admit it, but a part of her felt proud. She had survived alone for so long, but now she was learning that survival could be more than just endurance. It could be growth, learning, and connection. That evening, Lyra sat in a quiet corner of the ship, watching the stars through a large viewport. She remembered the market, the predators, the loneliness she had felt. She thought of the human who had protected her, who had taught her patience, and who had shown her a new kind of strength. A small smile tugged at her lips. For the first time, she felt like she might belong somewhere. Not because she had changed who she was, but because someone had seen her true self and valued it. And Lyra realized something else. Humans were different from any species she had ever known. They were fragile, yet strong. Simple, yet clever. Fearless, yet cautious. They could survive where others failed, not just because of power, but because of heart, mind, and courage. She had never met anyone like Joran before, and for the first time, Lyra began to think that maybe, just maybe, she could trust him, and perhaps even call him a friend. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of surprises, but Lyra felt a flicker of hope. With Joran, she could face it all, and that hope, quiet but steady, was the first step toward a future she had never dared to imagine. The galaxy was vast, full of strange stars, unknown planets, and dangers lurking in the shadows. Lyra had traveled with Joran for several weeks now, learning, observing, and slowly trusting the human in ways she had never trusted anyone. But trust, she was about to learn, would be tested like never before. The calm of their journey was broken by a sudden alert on the ship's console. Red lights flashed, and a shrill alarm filled the cabin. Joran's expression remained calm, but Lyra felt a rush of tension in her chest. "What is it?" she asked, her instincts sharpening. "Someone is following us," Joran replied. "A faction from Zephyra. They didn't forget you." Lyra's stomach tightened. She had thought she had escaped her enemies at the market, but clearly the galaxy had other plans. She had never seen them all at once. The predators, the hunters, the ones who sought to capture her. And now they were coming for her again. Joran moved swiftly, issuing commands to the ship's systems. Shields activated, weapons powered up, and the ship adjusted its course. Lyra watched, her heart pounding, but she did not move blindly. Instead, she focused, analyzing the situation as she had done countless times before in her life of survival. "You can help," Joran said, noticing her tense stance. "I need you at the rear controls. Your instincts will be useful." Lyra's eyes widened. She had never fought alongside anyone willingly. She was a survivor, yes, but always alone. The thought of teamwork felt strange, but also thrilling. Slowly she moved to the rear console, placing her hands on the unfamiliar controls. "Watch their approach," Joran instructed. "Tell me when they get too close." Lyra's green eyes scanned the starry expanse ahead. She saw the enemy vessels materializing from the darkness like predators stalking prey. Their designs were jagged, aggressive, made for intimidation. Yet for the first time, Lyra did not feel fear alone. She felt focus, control, and an odd sense of shared purpose with Joran. "They're getting closer," she said, voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. Joran nodded. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Trust your instincts." The ship shuddered as it twisted and turned through space, dodging blasts fired by the enemy. Lyra's hands moved quickly, following instincts honed over years of survival. She adjusted shields, rerouted power, and even predicted an enemy's trajectory before Joran could act. Together, they moved as one, human ingenuity paired with alien instinct. The attackers were relentless. Vessels swarmed around them, firing continuously. Lyra could see sparks and energy arcs hitting the shields. Her adrenaline surged, and for the first time she realized she was not just running from danger. She was confronting it, standing side by side with someone she trusted. Joran glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. "Good instincts. Keep it up." Lyra felt a surge of pride. She had always relied on herself, but now she realized that combining her strength with someone else's mind could make them nearly unstoppable. Humans were unpredictable, clever, and surprisingly resilient. Joran had proved that time and again. Minutes felt like hours as they battled the enemy vessels. Lyra's movements were precise, her mind calculating angles, shields, and evasive routes. She noticed patterns in the attackers' formations and relayed the information to Joran, who adjusted their strategy. Slowly, steadily, they began turning. The tide. A particularly large enemy ship loomed ahead, charging its weapons. Lyra's instincts screamed at her to act, and Joran's calm voice guided her. Together, they fired a precise counterattack, hitting the vessel's engines. The ship spun out of control and disappeared into the void. The remaining, seeing their leader destroyed, retry. Weeks had passed since the battle with the Zephyra faction. Lyra had grown stronger, not just in skill, but in understanding. She moved through the ship with confidence, operating controls, managing supplies, and assisting Joran in navigating the stars. She no longer feared the unknown. She thrived on it. The galaxy, however, was beginning to take notice of her. Rumors spread quickly. A human had claimed the wild alien girl who had been rejected by everyone. Whispers reached distant planets, marketplaces, and starports. Some aliens were curious, some were fearful, and some were envious. But all agreed on one thing: Lyra was no longer the lone outcast. Lyra herself noticed the change. At a docking, stationed on a trading planet, she stepped off the ship cautiously. Merchants paused mid-sail, staring at her with a mixture of awe and apprehension. Children peeked from behind crates, whispering excitedly about the girl who had survived the humans' protection. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt eyes on her, not with fear, but with respect. Joran walked beside her, calm and observant as ever. "They're noticing you," he said quietly. "And it's a good thing. People respect strength, but respect paired with someone willing to stand by you, that's rare." Lyra tilted her head, her green eyes scanning the crowd. She had always thought respect was earned through dominance or fear. But now she realized it could come in other ways, through courage, trust, and the willingness of someone to see your true value. Their visit was interrupted by a formal request. Representatives from a nearby Star Council requested an audience with Lyra. The council had heard of her exploits and wished to recognize her bravery in defending the ship and Joran against the Zephyra attackers. Lyra hesitated. She was not used to ceremonies, speeches, or attention, yet Joran gave her a reassuring nod. "You've earned it," he said simply. "Step forward." Lyra approached the council chamber, her movements cautious but proud. The council members studied her silently before nodding in approval. "Lyra," one spoke, "your courage and skill are exceptional. You have faced danger that few could survive, and yet you have done so with honor. We welcome you as an ally and a representative among the stars." For the first time, Lyra felt a warmth she had never known. She had survived alone, always on the edge of fear and distrust. Now she was acknowledged, not for fear, not for power, but for her true self. The human who had claimed her, who had believed in her when no one else would, had opened a door she never thought existed. After the ceremony, Lyra returned to the ship. She stared out at the stars, reflecting on what had happened. "Why do they respect me now?" she asked softly, mostly to herself. Joran joined her, leaning against the railing. "Because someone stood by you," he said. "Because you proved yourself, and because now others can see your true strength, not just your wildness." Lyra nodded slowly. She had always thought survival was about being strong enough to fight alone. But respect, she realized, was different. Respect was about showing value to others, and allowing others to show value to you. Humans had a strange way of seeing things, and she had come to trust their perspective. The following days brought more challenges. Lyra helped negotiate with alien traders, demonstrated her skills in protective maneuvers, and guided the ship through treacherous asteroid fields. Each time she noticed the quiet admiration of those around her. Aliens who had once ignored her or called her wild now sought her counsel. Even other humans aboard the fleet looked at her with new respect. 1. Evening, as Lyra and Joran prepared the ship for departure, a young alien approached her. I want to learn from you," the alien said nervously. "You are brave. You are strong. Will you teach me?" Lyra's heart warmed. She had never thought of herself as someone others could learn from. But now she realized that her experiences, her survival, and the trust she had learned from Joran could help others grow stronger too. "I will," she said softly, offering a small smile. "But you must be willing to listen, to learn, and to trust. That is where true strength begins." The young alien nodded eagerly, and Lyra felt a sense of purpose she had never known. Teaching, guiding, and protecting others gave her a reason beyond survival. It made her feel alive in a way that constant fear never had. Joran watched from a distance, a faint smile on his face. He had seen Lyra grow from a wild, mistrustful girl into someone who could inspire and lead. Humans were not the only ones capable of greatness, he thought. But their ability to see potential in others, to trust and act without hesitation, often brought out the best in those they chose to stand by. Lyra began to realize the truth of his words. She had always relied on her instincts and strength alone. But with Joran's guidance, she had learned patience, strategy, and trust. She had faced danger, survived it, and gained recognition, not through fear, but through courage and cooperation. Word continued to spread across the galaxy. Aliens from distant systems sought her counsel, asked for protection, or requested training in survival and combat skills. Lyra became a symbol, not of fear, but of possibility. She represented the idea that even those who had been rejected, feared, or underestimated could rise above expectations with courage and the right allies. And always Joran was by her side, not commanding, not controlling, but guiding, supporting, and trusting her abilities. His belief in her had transformed her life, teaching her that humans were extraordinary not only for their strength, but for their courage, decisiveness, and faith in others. One night, as the ship traveled through a calm sector of space, Lyra, leaned against the viewport watching distant stars twinkle. She thought of her old life, lonely, harsh, and unforgiving. And she thought of Joran, who had chosen her without hesitation, who had fought for her, taught her, and trusted her. For the first time, Lyra felt truly seen. She was no longer the wild alien girl feared and rejected by everyone. She was Lyra, survivor, warrior, and trusted ally. And she had learned something extraordinary. Humans, with their courage, heart, and decisiveness, could change lives, not through fear or power, but through trust and action. Lyra turned to Joran, a soft smile on her face. "Thank you," she said quietly. Joran shook his head with a grin. "No need. You earned all of this. I just showed you the way." Lyra's heart swelled with a quiet pride. She had survived, yes, but now she had a purpose beyond survival. She had allies, respect, and a place in the galaxy she had never imagined possible. And she knew that with humans like Joran by her side, she could face anything. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but Lyra no longer feared it. She had learned the true power of courage, trust, and the bond between those willing to stand together. And in that knowledge, she found freedom, strength, and hope for the first time in her life. The stars stretched endlessly before Lyra as the ship glided through space. She leaned against the viewport, watching the glowing points of light drift by. It was peaceful, but she knew the galaxy was never truly calm. Danger and opportunity traveled together, and she had learned to face both with courage. Lyra had changed. She was no longer the wild alien girl feared and rejected by all. She had strength, skill, and instincts that had kept her alive. But she also had trust, patience, and understanding. The gifts Joran had shown her. Together they had faced enemies, survived attacks, and earned respect across the stars. Lyra had grown into someone remarkable, and she knew her journey was only beginning. Joran approached, carrying a small tray with water and food. He handed it to her with a smile. "You've been staring at the stars for a while, thinking about what's next." Lyra took the tray, her green eyes still fixed on the view. "I've been thinking about everything. About the market, the hunters, the council, and you. About what I've learned, about what humans can do." Joran raised an eyebrow. "Humans? You mean me?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes. You've changed my life. You taught me patience, trust, and teamwork. You showed me that survival isn't just about strength. It's about courage, decisions, and the people you choose to stand with." Joran laughed softly. "Well, that's humans for you. We're strange creatures, not always the strongest, not always the fastest, but willing to act, willing to trust, and willing to fight for others. You've learned it well." Lyra nodded. She remembered the first day they had met, how everyone had feared her, how predators had hunted her, how no one had cared. And now, she saw how much had changed. Her life was no longer about escaping danger alone. It was about building, protecting, and guiding. "Are we going to keep traveling?" she asked. "Absolutely," Joran said. "There are worlds to explore, species to help, and places where your skills, and mine, can make a difference. But now you'll do it not just as a survivor, but as a leader." Lyra's chest tightened. Leader. She had never thought of herself that way. Yet the council, the traitors, and even the young aliens who sought her guidance had already shown her the power of her example. She realized that being strong was not enough. Helping others, inspiring courage, and protecting the weak was even stronger. As the ship approached a vibrant star system, a transmission appeared on the screen. A nearby colony requested assistance. Their navigation systems had failed, and they were stranded in a field of asteroids. Lyra and Joran shared a glance. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had been waiting for. The two moved quickly. Lyra analyzed the asteroid field, predicting movement and identifying safe paths. Geloted, the she